2 years ago, the Louisville Metro Police Department obtained a no-knock warrant based on a submission from Detective Joshua James. As a result of that no-knock warrant, 3 police officers shot over 30 bullets into Breonna Taylor's apartment, killing her. Those police officers were Jonathan Mattingly, Brett Hankinson, and Miles Cosgrove. In the aftermath of that incident, thousands of Louisvillians took to the streets to protest the police killing of Breonna Taylor as well as George Floyd, demanding accountability, criminal legal reform, and racial justice. The Louisville Metro Police Department responded to these protests using various forms of crowd control weaponry, including tear gas, rubber bullets, and pepper spray. From that one incident and the protests about it, there have been many attempts to use the legal system to obtain justice and accountability, including work by the ACLU of Kentucky. Here's a brief summary of all of those proceedings. And there are 2 types of cases I'll discuss. Criminal cases, where the government prosecutes crimes and the potential sentence includes incarceration, and civil cases, where the remedy involves either money or a change in government policy. For the criminal cases, there have been state criminal charges that have been or could have been brought against the police officers for killing Breonna Taylor. Attorney General Daniel Cameron's office acted as a special prosecutor and opened a grand jury investigation to determine whether to indict any of the 3 officers involved in that shooting. Cameron's office, though, made the decision to not even pursue any charges against Mattingly or Cosgrove because Cameron claimed they were justified in using force. Cameron's office, though, did indict Hankinson on wanton endangerment charges based on shooting the wall in Breonna's apartment, not shooting Breonna Taylor. That case went to trial, and a jury ultimately found Hankinson not guilty. So in sum, no police officer has been held criminally accountable under state law for Breonna's death. The Department of Justice and the FBI, though, have said they are still investigating whether any of the police officers violated federal criminal law in killing Breonna Taylor, and that investigation is still ongoing. And finally, there have been federal criminal charges brought against a police officer for attacking a protester. In U.S. v. Evans, Corey Evans pled guilty, admitting to hitting a protester on the head with his baton. Evans was recently sentenced to 2 years in prison. With respect to the civil cases, the ACLU of Kentucky, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and Emory Shelley, a New York City law firm, filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of individual protesters and the Kentucky Alliance Against Racial and Political Repression, based on LMPD's use of force and intimidation against peaceful protesters in violation of their First and Fourth Amendment rights. That case is ongoing, and if successful, we will have forced the LMPD to change how they respond to protesters and could limit the use of tear gas, pepper spray, and other crowd control measures so people can protest in Louisville without fear of police violence. In addition, the Department of Justice has an ongoing look into LMPD's practices to determine whether there is a pattern of LMPD violating constitutional rights, such as using excessive force, discriminating against certain groups of people, and limiting the First Amendment rights to free speech. The Civil Rights Division has indicated that that investigation is still ongoing. In addition, Breonna Taylor's family had brought a wrongful death claim against the city. That case settled for $12 million and some promise of LMPD reforms. Kenneth Walker, who was Breonna Taylor's boyfriend and was in the apartment when Breonna Taylor was killed, brought a civil lawsuit for violation of his civil rights, and that case is ongoing. Additionally, many other individual protesters have brought cases in state and federal courts based on LMPD's actions against them during the protests. And finally, there have been disciplinary actions brought against the police officers involved. 3 of the 4 key police officers have been terminated. Josh James was fired for lying on the application for the no-knock warrant. Miles Cosgrove was fired for failing to identify a threat when firing his gun in Breonna's apartment. And Brett Hankinson was fired for creating a substantial danger of death and serious injury The police killing of Breonna Taylor and the protests that occurred in the aftermath also resulted in various policy proposals and changes and legislative changes as well. For example, the ACLU of Kentucky and now Representative Katora Herron led successful efforts to pass what we call Breonna's Law, which banned no-knock warrants except in certain circumstances across the city of Louisville. In addition, in Kentucky in 2021, the legislature passed a watered-down version of the law that bans no-knock warrants across the Commonwealth of Kentucky except in certain circumstances. And that effort, too, was led by the ACLU of Kentucky and now Representative Katora Herron. Unfortunately, here in Kentucky, legislators, and we're seeing across the country, legislators have filed several bills targeting protesters and protecting government officials from public accountability. We at the ACLU of Kentucky are working hard to stop these laws from being enacted and will continue to do so. Our work for racial justice and police accountability can be slow, but is critical. We are so grateful for the protesters and the dedication of our supporters and look forward to keeping this fight moving forward.